Okay, well, it's about that time. Welcome, everyone, to our special webinar with Ted Tuchalski from DATCAP, and he will be speaking about the new lodging rule. So here he is. Take it away, Ted.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Ted Tuchalski with DATCAP. I'm the Environmental Health Technical Specialist. And today's webinar is about the updated ATCP 72, which is the Hotel, Motel, and Tourist Rooming House lodging rule. And we'll be going over the new updates that just happened this past year. So just a little background information. We are nestled in Division of Food and Recreational Businesses within the Recreational Business section. We oversee rec ed camps, pools, campgrounds, and then the lodging rules. There's two lodging rules, ATCP 72, which is what we're talking about today. And then there's also 73, which did not update, and that's your bed and breakfast establishments. That's a home with up to 8 rooms for rent, and then there's an on-site innkeeper that cooks breakfast. That's separate than our vacation homes or tourist rooming houses, which did update in that 72. Most of the work is done by our agent programs. These are our local health departments or these yellow colored counties. 51 counties are agent health department run. They do the work on behalf of DATCAP. It is a state rule, and then they carry out that inspection work for us. And there's roughly about 300 plus environmental health staff that are going out and doing these inspections, whether it be state staff or that agent health department. Just want to point out some of the resources that we have on our lodging web pages, both the hotel motel landing page and then also the tourist rooming house landing page. If you're on a desktop, the resources will be along the right side. And if you're using your phone, it's as you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll find those resources. But we have 4 training webinars that are listed here. There's a quick fact sheet on changes, just in a bulleted punch list of changes. And then there's forms, flyers, and fact sheets along that right side for you to review and use as a resource. If there are any other questions that come up for clarification or suggestions or additional training needs, we do have the recreational mailbox, which is DATCAP dfrsrec@wisconsin.gov. And you're welcome to send in suggestions or questions to that, and someone will answer that for you. Additional resources, this lodging inspection areas and key items summary fact sheet. This will give you a line list of things to prepare for your next inspection. We also have different figures and graphics in there to help kind of clarify some of these new rule requirements. All right, so the rulemaking process, this has been something that has been going on for multiple years now. We started in December of 2022. It was a 6-stage process to get it through the initial drafting period and review, and then through the legislative review as well. It was published in October and then went into effect January 25th of this year, 2026. Helping us with that rule writing revisions was the Rule Revision Advisory Committee. The left 3 columns are government individuals. So we had people from the State Department of DATCAP. We had representation of our agent inspection staff, which is the WHLA EH. And then we also had county code administrator, Wisconsin County Code Administrator participant, and those are your local zoning administrators. And then the ones on the right, those 4 columns, that's membership of industry. So we had WACO, which is Campground Association, WRA was Realtors Association, and then obviously Bill with your group. So the previous outline, this was the old code. We had 16 sections. The new code is broken into subchapters, and it's a bit more lengthy. So now we have 29 sections. So some of the reasons of why this is so much longer is it includes new concepts, and then is also bringing over existing concepts from other rules for uniformity. So we added some licensing options. We have the death, illness, and injury reporting form, which is something you may be familiar with if you have a pool, a licensed pool. It's the same type of concept. We added in private well testing. So vacation homes that have a private well, we now require testing just like any other lodging facility. We added in some language about waterborne disease outbreak procedures, particularly Legionella. We added in criticality. This is a concept brought over by the FDA and the food code. That's where it was originally introduced, and we've been adding that to some of our other new rules. So what it does is it brings out their classifications of either priority, priority foundation, or core, and that kind of draws your eye to those important priority things that are important to public health. And then we also increased definitions. So there's a 5-fold increase in definitions. We went from 20 some terms to over 100 now. There's also transparency of expectations. So previous rule, we had this statement that said for utensil sanitization, wash, rinse, and sanitize in an improved manner. That really doesn't tell you as industry what that means. And for us, that means we have to create documents to explain what the approved manner is. So in the new rule, this is what it means, an approved manner. It's all spelled out, and the inspector should be able to read this, and you should be able to read this and come to the same conclusion on what's acceptable. We also improved data collection in the sense of expanding where to write things for the inspectors. So on the left was just general maintenance. On the right is the new version where we have it split up into different parts of the hotel, whether it be or lodging facility, whether it be the sleeping room, common areas, or exterior premises. So they can write up the maintain, clean, and good repair in each of those sections. And what that does is it helps cut down on debiting the same thing. So in the previous, it would have been under 72.152. And that could create a repeat situation, which would follow up in enforcement. So the rule changes, we'll go through section by section. The QR code on the screen is for the administrative code to follow along. So we'll be looking more in depth at the ones with the asterisk. So this is subchapter 1, the definitions of authority and purpose. Section 0.25 is variances. This is something that we have been doing in rule, but it wasn't actually written into the lodging code. Now it is. But a variance is an opportunity for an operator to petition the rule or say they are doing something in a different manner, but it meets the same intent of the rule. But not letter for letter of how the rule is written. So there's an option for submitting a variance and getting that approved. But this section details on what the existing procedures are and what the license holder expectations are for that. Section 3, like I had said, the definitions increased 5-fold from 20 to over 100. We added in inspector jargon. What does it mean to be easily cleanable? What's active managerial control? TCS food or time or temperature controlled food item. That's something that requires refrigeration or hot holding or cold holding for food safety. We added in building component terms, licensing terms, and then also that criticality that I had mentioned earlier. Subchapter 2 is licensing and fees. We'll look at section 6, 7, and 8 from here. Section 6 is the plan review. This is still yet to be developed. The intent here is to create a plan review application similar to what we do in our campground program. And this, I think, will really cut down on follow-up, pre-inspection follow-ups that we do at vacation homes. Oftentimes there are smoke alarms in the wrong place or not enough of them, or carbon monoxide alarms, same idea, not enough of them or in the wrong place, or maybe we have a staircase without a handrail. The idea is to get this information out in the forefront before the inspector shows up to do that licensing inspection, and hopefully cut down on the number of follow-ups for that. So again, this will be an opportunity for us to create some type of application process for that. Section 7 is licenses. So we did expand the type of licenses that we issue. There's now up to 3 licenses for a given premise. A premises is defined as a county or municipal tax parcel that's adjacent to another one or contiguous, and that forms a larger premise. Each premises is issued up to 3 licenses, one for hotel motel, one for tourist rooming house, and one for specialty lodging, which is this new concept that we introduced with this rule. And that's a primitive cabin-esque type structure without plumbing in it. And we'll cover that in the very last sections. And then each of those license types will have a range based on the number of units that are offered. So in this diagram here, we have that kind of teal line is outlining the tax parcel. And on that tax parcel, we have the darker blue building. That's the lodging facility. We count up the number of hotel rooms and issue a license for that. In larger facilities that take up multiple tax parcels, again, the smaller square on the left is contiguous or adjacent to the other one that also contains the lodging facility. So collectively, this is all one premises. And what we do is, again, count up the number of hotel, motel rooms, tourist rooming houses, or specialty lodging and issue the license for each. The fees did go up since the last fee adjustment, which I believe was 2008 or 2010 was the last fee adjustment. So the fees did go up for hotel, motel about 3% per year since that 2010 adjustment. Tourist rooming houses went up 6% per year since that 2010 adjustment. And there will be an overall built-in 5% increase in 2028. We also added an expansion pre-inspection fee. So if a lodging facility gets added on or expanded upon after initial licensing, there would be a pre-inspection fee for those new sections that are added. And then we did cut down the enforcement fees to just one flat fee. Before it was a graduated increase based on number of facilities. So here is the fee table. Again, you've got tourist rooming house, hotel, motel, and specialty lodging, and then the number of units that would correspond to that license. These fees are for DACAP inspected facilities. The local health departments, or in those earlier slides, the ones in the gold or yellow colored counties, they do have the ability to create their own fee values. So they may differ slightly from what you would get at a DACAP inspected. Subchapter 3 is the enforcement and appeals. Section 9, enforcements. What we did is we included action plans. This is something we've used at other administrative rules. We've now just brought it into this one. And a corrective action plan is an ongoing road to compliance agreement between the inspector and the operator. We usually use these for something that's difficult to fix within a week, a month, or a year. These are ongoing larger scope projects that need to get in the right direction, but may take longer time to do so. Subchapter 4 are the standards for lodging facilities. So section 14 is inspections. This just addresses the availability of a person in charge to sign a report, or what the inspector is supposed to do if there's a refusal to sign a report. So oftentimes inspectors will, especially for tourist rooming houses, they'll just get the key code pad or keypad number to enter into the rental, do the inspection, and then call the manager or operator afterwards and discuss the findings. So they're doing a solo inspection at that time. This just addresses what to do if someone is not available to sign that report. Subchapter 5 is the general provisions. So this is the meat and potatoes of the code. These sections are the bulk of what that inspector is reviewing during their inspection. Construction standards. So we did make a general statement to Wisconsin building codes and the chapters, state statute chapters, and then also the administrative code chapters that SPS, or Department of Safety and Professional Services, have jurisdiction over. And those would apply to plumbing construction, sewage construction or POUTS, the private on-site wastewater treatment systems, and then also just general building construction. So this is a nod to DSPS and their authority for construction standards. We then put in our own DAC safety standards on top of that. So there will be a little bit of a crossover when it comes to like handrails or guards or exiting in a tourist rooming house. But again, these statements are the construction standards for those three programs of plumbing, sewage, and building construction. Section 16 is water supply. So water is needed in each lodging facility under pressure. There should be a toilet, sink, and shower or bathtub within each unit. A minimum of hot water needs to be provided at a temperature of 85 degrees. There's also instructions on what to do if there's a temporary water service disruption, such as a water main break or replacing a water heater and having to take the system offline temporarily. There's now private well testing for facilities that are on a private well to include an annual bacteria testing or total coliform test, and then also a nitrate test. We also added in some language about waterborne disease outbreaks, specifically water management programs for Legionella outbreaks that are confirmed, and then also information about backflow prevention and air gaps. So here's a typical full bathroom at a tourist rooming house. We have the toilet, we have the shower / bathtub, and then the lavatory or sink. There's also soap available for use for washing hands. There's means for drying hands, in this case, towels, and then there's also a supply of toilet paper. So those are the basic toilet facility requirements in a lodging facility. Annual testing for contaminants. So these are the action levels for different contamination. E. coli, if it's present or exceeds 0 coliforming units, this would be a closure of that facility or that affected area that uses that well. If there are 3 consecutive coliform positive tests, that again would be a discontinuation of the water system for drinking water purposes. And if there's a high nitrate result or one that exceeds 10 ppm, that would be a discontinue use of the water system for drinking water or food preparation. If there becomes a discontinuation due to a high level of contaminant, there are options to provide bottled water in the interim as a short temporary fix to allow guests to still use that facility. There would be some signage that would get posted to, saying don't use the water from this faucet, use the bottled water instead. And then the long-term fix would either be a point of entry filtration system, a point of use filtration system, or the worst case scenario would be a redrilling of the well. For Legionella outbreak response, how these work or have worked, we get notified by the Department of Health and Services, DHS, of a possible Legionella outbreak. That would be 2 or more cases within a 12-month period. And the only association between those 2 cases is that they stayed at the same facility. We go out and do an environmental assessment with the local health department if it's an agent, along with DHS. And we follow the CDC guidelines for doing an environmental assessment and sampling. If any of the samples come back positive, that then goes through a compliance steps and closure of the affected areas. The facility is then tasked with doing a remediation step. So whether that be high chlorination or heat treatment or excessive flushing, whatever it may be, to rid that system of the bacteria. There's then sampling that is done on those test sites that came back positive. And once we get a clearance or a negative test result for the bacteria, then that facility is allowed to reopen. They are now going to be tasked with having a water management program to carry them throughout as a bacteria-free facility. And what that water management program is a multi-step process or a recipe, for lack of better terms, for that facility to follow to ensure that the bacteria doesn't grow again within their system. Backflow prevention, we have multiple devices that one would see in a lodging facility. The atmospheric vacuum breaker, that ASSE 1001 on a mop sink. There's the 1011 that gets screwed onto a threaded hose bib. ASSE 1019 is something you would see on the exterior of a home. for an outdoor hose bib or silcock. And then there's the ASSC 1055, which would be on a chemical dispenser. And then the most common backflow prevention issue that we see is usually on the drain line of the ice machine. There should actually be a physical air gap where that drain line is up above the floor drain, and you can actually run your hand between it. And oftentimes we see that drain line actually in the floor sink. So that's just something that needs to be modified to get that up and out of the floor sink. Section 17 is sewage disposal. We have added in Pout's access covers need to be locked or secured. The Pout's, again, is the private on-site wastewater treatment system or septic system. This is something that we already do at the campground code and some of our other administrative codes. So again, carry over for consistency. We've allowed alternatives to water carried waste plumbing fixtures. So these are composting toilets or privies or incinerating toilets, anything that's allowed in that SPS rule for alternatives to your traditional plumb toilet. And then there's also a requirement for slip resistant flooring in showers or bathtubs. This could be grouted tile, anti-slip tape that's added to the basin to prevent any type of fall hazard. It could be a bath mat or just a textured surface on that tub. So here are two examples. The one on the left has a faint textured surface that's on that basin, and then the one on the right is a textured shower basin. Section 18, again, building structure and safety. We have handrail and guard additions to the rule now. This graphic kind of visually describes what those provisions are. So if we have a staircase with more than 3 risers, it's required to have a handrail. That handrail is measured from the nose of the tread up vertically, and it should be between 30 to 38 inches above that stair tread. If there's an open side to the stairs, so there's a fall hazard, then it has to be guarded, and those guards can terminate on the underside of the handrail, but the gaps between them should be no more than 6 inches. If the risers are open, so it's an open stair, then those risers should not have gaps more than 6 inches. And again, on elevated surfaces, any type of gaps between risers are the 6 inches. If there's a fall hazard that's greater than 30 inches, then it needs to be protected with guards that are 36 inches in height. So examples of this would be balconies, decks, porches, whatever it may be. If there's a fall of over 30 inches, then it should be guarded. So these handrails and guard rules do not apply to landscaping features. So if you have a staircase down to the lake, a retention or retaining wall, egress wells, anything of that sort, we're not looking to guard that so long as it's detached from the lodging facility. In addition, with Section 18, we have ceiling height of 7 feet in sleeping rooms. This has been in the rule for since 1980, but the previous rule took into or implied 100% of that floor space needing 7 feet in height. We've reduced this to match current building code, which only requires at least 50% of that floor space to have a height of 7 feet. So now we can have angled ceilings or ceiling heights that aren't a flat 7 feet for that whole sleeping room. We've also introduced bed spacing, at least 2 feet aisle between beds. And this could be from either of the side rails, the head, or the foot of that bed. And then this allows people to get out and use that pathway for egress. And then bed placement should also allow maximum ceiling height for that patron to get out. So this is what we're trying to prevent with that bed spacing requirement. And again, here's a schematic. The bed spacing at 2 feet can be shared. So the 2 twin beds on the right or single beds, those are sharing that egress pathway. We have a bunk bed spacing requirement too. So these should offer at least 30-inch clearance, both on the bottom bunk to the upper, and then also from that upper mattress to the ceiling or any type of protrusion from the ceiling. There should be spacing at least 3.5 inches for the guards on these. And then that top railing should be at least 5 inches above the top of the mattress. So here's another for the measurement of that 30 inches. We're looking at the top of that lower mattress to the bottom of that frame on the upper bunk. Here are areas of hazards. So this is on the left, a bunk bed that doesn't offer enough clearance. It doesn't have that 30-inch of headspace. And then on the right is a mattress that is just too thick and negates the efficacy of that rail on that top bunk. And again, here's another non-compliant bunk bed. Again, we've got more than 2 beds stacked and not enough head clearance for these. Carrying on, we have exits from sleeping rooms and tourist rooming houses. This was added in. We are assessing each floor with a sleeping room and ensuring that there's the required amount of exits. So whether it be the basement, the first floor, the second floor, a loft, or above the second floor, each of those will have differing exiting requirements. In general, there should be at least 2 exits, with the exception of a loft, to get out of that floor. In addition to the exits in tourist rooming houses, we're now requiring building evacuation diagrams. This is very common on the back of a hotel door. We're now asking to have that included into tourist rooming houses. These can either be posted on the back of each sleeping room door or provided in a binder in the check-in materials. Either one would work. Any fire alarms, emergency lights, exit signs, fire extinguishers, if they're provided, then they just have to be maintained according to the requirements and making sure that they're functional. Smoke alarms, this is new for the amount that are required now. So the last code, we only required 1 smoke alarm per unit. Now we are requiring, again, this is in line with current building codes, on every floor outside of each separate sleeping area and within each sleeping room. So this is within each unit. In a hotel, you just have that one room. There's going to be a smoke alarm already in there. In a tourist rooming house, this is going from 1 to now multiple. Every floor within each sleeping room and then outside those sleeping areas. Carbon monoxide alarms, this has not changed since the 2018 statute change, but we're looking for, if there's a fuel burning appliance like a gas or wood burning appliance, if it's within a unit, if there's a fuel burning appliance outside of the unit, or there's an attached private garage, then there's going to be some requirement for a carbon monoxide alarm to be installed. The alarms, both carbon monoxide and smoke, have a UL standard that they need to conform to. This just ensures that they are functioning to appropriate standards, which is UL 217 for smoke and UL 2034 for carbon monoxide. Detectors are devices that are connected to the fire alarm system. So if you have a hotel that likely has a fire alarm system with detectors in there, and those have their own UL standards. We've been seeing, especially with the alarms, we've been seeing a lot of tourist rooming house owners purchasing online alarms that don't have a UL standard. They'll buy them from a online retailer, and unfortunately, those devices just don't always meet the requirements. So if you are looking to purchase some alarms for your facility, you can always send into that mailbox to see if they are legitimate enough to be used in your facility or not. Section 19, building and premises maintenance. This is just general maintenance and cleanliness, again, separated by area, like I had mentioned in those earlier slides, sleeping rooms, common areas, and exterior premises. We added in the ability to require an operator to hire a licensed pest control operator. So if there is an extensive infestation that just seems beyond the means of someone trying to do it themselves, or there's a failed reinspection, if there is a bed bug infestation or a complaint, we go out and take a look at that. If it's confirmed that there are bed bugs, we would issue a closure of that room. The operator is given the opportunity to eliminate the pests, and upon reinspection, if bed bugs are still found, then that would be the time that a licensed pest control operator may be required. Continuing on with this section, chemicals just need to be stored in a secure area. And then if there's any working containers, the common name needs to be written on those working containers or spray bottles. Section 20 is furnishing equipment and utensils. We now have jetted fill and drain bathtub cleaning procedures. So there needs to be some type of demonstration of knowledge by the operator or the person in charge on how these are being cleaned. We do have a fact sheet on our webpage to give more information or recommendations on how to do that. We've expanded our utensil sanitization methods and procedures. That was kind of in those earlier slides. Instead of just an approved manner, now we actually have it written out on what an approved manner is. And then guest sanitization signage just needs to reflect the directions for providing the sanitizing method. So if it's, a Quats chemical is the sanitizer, then those directions for the guests need to reflect Quats instructions. So here's a water jetted fill and drain bathtub. The procedure for cleaning these is filling water above that jet line and then putting a chemical cleaner and sanitizer in there and running that for 5 to 10 minutes and then draining that out and then cleaning out the basin. The problem with these tubs is that they will retain water from one use to the next. So if there isn't a flushing of that water, it could be held stagnant in there. And this does lead to growing bacteria. We have cultured Legionella out of these in the past. The sanitization, so this is for reusable utensils that are given to a guest. Either the operator does it or it's delegated to the guest to do it. But it's a wash, rinse, sanitize, and air dry procedure. Again, you can use chlorine, iodine, quaternary ammonia are going to be or quats are going to be your most common. And then there should be a test strips to verify that you're testing appropriately. There's also an option for using a residential NSF dish machine. So this one has a sanitized cycle, both a sandy cycle and then a sanitized light will illuminate when that cycle has completed. And again, these will have a NSF label either on the inside of the door or on the inner frame of that tub. If the guest is required to do the sanitization, there should be a signage alerting them that these dishes have not been sanitized. They've been cleaned, but they haven't been sanitized. And it's just a consumer notice, so they're aware. If they want to sanitize, the directions and the chemical are available either within that unit or available upon request at the front desk or other central location. And again, the directions should match the method of sanitizing. So if it's using the dishwasher, then there should be instructions on how to run that sanitized cycle. Linens, so the cleaning schedule on these has not changed from previous rule. Your washcloths, towels, sheets, pillow slips, those are all cleaned between each guest stay. There's weekly laundering for extended stays, and then everything else just needs to be maintained clean. So your couches, comforters, blankets, those are just maintained clean. We did add in a non-absorbent mattress protector is now required. The best option for that would be a bed bug cover. That is going to protect the mattress from infestation and then also has a waterproof or non-absorbent feature to it. Anything that prevents liquid from going through the sheets and onto the mattress is what we're looking for, is that non-absorbent characteristic. General storage, so clean linens are stored properly and up off the floor. Single-use items are packaged and stored away from chemicals. The one on the left should be flipped, where you have your chemicals on the bottom and your food utensils above that. On the right, we have single-use cups that are wrapped in plastic. those we wouldn't expect to be replaced between each guest stay, but if it was just a glass, flipped upside down on a coaster, that would be something that would get changed out between each guest stay. Again, what we're trying to prevent on the left with that non-absorbent mattress protector is that staining on the mattresses, and then just furnishings, general good repair and replace when needed. Section 21 is food. So what is allowed is non-TCS or items that don't require refrigeration, these non-time or temperature controlled for food safety prepackaged items. So cookies, popcorn, pretzels, coffee, anything that's prepackaged and shelf stable is fine. In addition, dry bulk spices are okay to have, so salt, pepper, sugar, etc. And then we also added in a grocery shopping service idea that would be allowed as well. So if the guest requests groceries to be purchased upon arrival, or if you're offering that to the guest, those items need to be purchased from the store and then placed under refrigeration within 2 hours, just ensuring that they aren't going to spoil or start to grow bacteria. The refrigerator does need a thermometer indicating that it is capable of holding 41 degrees or less. Section 22 is employee health. So now we have a training requirement or informative requirement of the employee to tell the person in charge when they have symptoms of vomiting or diarrhea or have been diagnosed with a food or waterborne communicable disease. And then we also have cleanup procedures for vomiting and diarrheal events that the employee would utilize when responding to those incidents. We have 2 fact sheets on our webpage. One is procedures for cleaning up vomit and diarrhea, and then the other one is suggested items to have in that cleanup kit. Section 24 is registration. So we are requiring and always really have a register of guests. What we use this information for is if there's a suspected outbreak, we match up the person with their stay to ensure we have the proper room to go and investigate, such as a Legionella outbreak. What is required is the person's name, a phone number or mailing address or email address, just some way to get a hold of them. It would also include their arrival and departure dates, and then the number of guests within that party. Section 25 is the death, injury, or illness report. Again, I'd said we are already doing this in the pool program. This has been carried over to the lodging. These would be incidents that require EMS to respond, but they would be and result in either a death, injury, or illness. What we're looking for are incidents where someone becomes injured because of the built environment, not necessarily an issue of self-harm or a conflict with another person resulting in EMS. This would be like a slip and fall injury not caused by a medical condition. So someone trying to go down the steps and the handle's loose, the handrail, and that's why they fell, not because they fainted because of a medical condition. Any type of cuts or lacerations, burns or scalds, carbon monoxide or smoke exposure, hazardous material or chemical exposure, and foodborne illness or waterborne illness. Those would all be items that we would want to be alerted of if EMS is called for any of those incidences. And then section 26, we have closing criteria. These are 8 instances when we would close either a facility or the affected area of a facility. Number 1 would be unsafe potable water. So this would be E. coli positive water. Number 2 would be a waterborne disease outbreak. So if we have a confirmed waterborne disease like a Legionella and test positive after doing a swab or collection of water, then that area would be closed. If a POUT system fails or a municipal sewer fails and there's no way to remove waste, that would be a closure item. A non-operational fire alarm system, absence of smoke alarms or absence of carbon monoxide alarms, lack of pest control, and then other unforeseen hazard that would need some type of intervention. All right, the last subchapter is subchapter 6. This is specialty lodging. This is that new concept that we had introduced. It's a type of tourist rooming house that's larger than 400 square feet, but less than 1,500 square feet, typically located in a rural or natural setting, and provides an unconventional lodging experience with no liquid or water carried waste plumbing fixtures. So examples would be a yurt that's greater than 400 square feet, an eco lodge, or some other type of primitive cabin. Section 27 are the exemptions. So they are not required to have the plumbed toilet, hand washing sink, and shower or bathtub within the structure. And they are not required to be connected to a municipal or POUTS sewer connection because they are not providing the plumbing. Prohibitions, so they can't have food or cooking equipment or sinks. And then the size is also limited to that 1,500 square feet, which is roughly 38 by 38. General provisions, so toilets and water do need to be provided. It's within a 400 feet walking distance from that unit. They just cannot be provided within the unit. And then also there's going to be some type of communication to guests of the different types of amenities that are provided or not provided, so they're aware of what they're getting into when they rent that place. So that takes us to the end of the rule rewrite. Again, any questions can go to this mailbox of DACCAP dfrsrec@wisconsin.gov. And then be sure to check our webpage for continuing resources. We still have a FAQ document that is going through the final revision that will be available as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ted, for taking the time today and for being a resource for WHLA. Thank you to everyone on this call who joined us, and keep an eye out in tomorrow's Insider for a copy of this webinar and for links to the resources Ted told us about. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.